Hannah Payne sentenced to life for murder of man during citizen's arrest. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, filming this video on December 17th, 2023, out here in Budapest, Hungary. This is the realest, rawest, blackest YouTube channel out here. We keep it intellectual. We read the text. We analyze the text. We go in depth into the study. We don't just jump into the headlines. Now, I did plan on covering this story, but I was compelled or impelled by my longtime subscriber and follower, Craig Mack, to cover this. So let's get into this. We all know the story of Hannah Payne right now. She was the white woman who saw a black man run into a car, and then she called the police to report a crime, followed the man to his home, and then shot him dead. 65-year-old Kenneth Herring. So we're going to jump into the story. Thankfully, justice has been served, but has it really? Let's find out. So, Clayton County, Georgia. Hannah Payne, the 25-year-old woman found guilty in the death of 62-year-old Kenneth Herring in Clayton County, will spend the rest of her life behind bars with the chance of parole. Payne, handcuffed and wearing her prison uniform, was overcome with emotion as Judge Jewel C. Scott sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole, plus 8 and 5 years to be served consecutively. A Clayton County jury convicted Payne of felony murder, malice murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and 3 charges of weapons possession during a crime on Wednesday. Before declaring her sentence, Scott heard from the members of Herring's family who asked her to give Payne life in prison. "I no longer have a big brother," said Vicki Lynn Herring, Kenneth Herring's youngest sister, tearing up while remembering the times growing up with the victim. "His grandchildren won't know him. He has 2 children. We don't have a father anymore. There were 6 of us. Now there's 5 of us that are left." This is the woman here, Jacqueline Herring, testifying in court. Rest in peace to her brother, and prayers for her family. Kenneth's sister, Jacqueline Herring, remembered her big brother as the type who would always boss the rest of the kids around and would leave jokes on her answering machine. "I can't call him if I wanted to. I can't visit him if I wanted to. I can go to the gravesite, but he can't respond," she said, saying she wanted the same thing for Payne. Where he got death without parole, I would like for her to have life without parole. Ooh, that's a powerful statement. That's a bar right there. Rihanna Novotny, a friend of the Paynes, talked about watching Hannah growing up and how she supported both her and Payne's mother while they dealt with cancer. "For Mr. Herring's family, I would like for you to know that her heart has broken a million times, and in spite of anything that anyone has alleged or told you, please know that from the depths of her heart and soul, she would never wanted to harm to come to your loved one," Novotny said. Well, she did, because she pulled out a gun and decided to kill a person. If you decide to do that, yes, you do want harm to come to people. The case got national attention, but Clayton County District Attorney Mosley says they do not believe the murder was race-related. She called the sentence a victory and says even if Payne eventually gets parole, she will still have to serve at least 43 years. Okay, so now I'm a bit more happy, at least. I'm not happy to see anybody go to jail, but I'm happy to see justice actually work to some degree to punish people who attack black men, especially when black men are not threatening them, especially when the police have told them to leave that black man alone, especially when people think that they can exercise authority over black men's autonomy. I am glad to see that she will at least have to do 43 years, but I am also disheartened that in America we are so punitive with punishment, and also we allow so many citizens in America to have access to weapons. Listen, I'm filming this video in Budapest, Hungary right now. In Budapest, or in Hungary, in all of Hungary last year, they only had 63 homicides. 63 homicides. Look that up. Meanwhile, in America, it's a good thing if one of our major cities only has 63 homicides through half of the year. That should be an embarrassment. In the richest, most powerful nation in the world, so many of our citizens die from gun violence, commit crimes using guns, and that sort of stuff. We allow mass shootings to continue to happen. I know a lot of Americans don't like my take on weapons, but listen, in Germany, they don't have these sorts of problems. In France, they don't have these sorts of problems. In Italy, they don't have the level of gun violence that we have in the U.S. Yet and still, Americans continue to worship the long black metal phallus that they think is God, and that's why we continue to have gun violence like this. I'm not going to say that the woman was racist or anything like that, or that she was a white supremacist, but she is a suspected white supremacist, because think about it. She didn't do this to a white man, and I'm pretty sure road rage happens often between white people, but yet and still they don't go out and commit murder like this. In our mind, when you look at 43 years and you're 25, all the good years are gone, she said. Well, she took away the many years that were ahead of Kenneth Herring. So, trade a trade. Prosecutors investigating death threats against families. After the sentencing, the Clayton County District Attorney Tasha Mosley told Fox 5 that her office is investigating multiple death threats against both families connected to the trial. Now, I have to say this, death threats are not cool at all. I receive death threats on my channel in my comment section quite often, and those people get blocked. I do not tolerate threats or any sort of instigations or allegations against myself or my family. I will do whatever I can to protect myself and my family, and so I don't allow those comments to exist. But death threats are not cool. They're very troubling and discouraging, even if it's from a troll. Nobody likes waking up and seeing death threats on their phone, or picking up the phone and hearing somebody say that they're going to bomb your house or do something to your wife or your husband or your kids or your parents. Nobody likes hearing that, right? And so death threats should be taken very, very seriously. But I have to say, why would you send death threats against the victims, against the family of the Herrings? Why would somebody send death threats against those people? They lost a family member. They're not the attorneys who are filing suit against Hannah Payne. The state is doing that. The state is the one that's prosecuting Hannah Payne, and they got a conviction. Why would you send messages against the family who lost a loved one? You are sick and you are evil, and you are most likely a white supremacist if you say anything negative to the Herring family. They didn't go outside and try to attack Hannah Payne. They didn't chase Hannah Payne down. They're not sending threats against her family and her life. The levers of justice are working, but that goes to show that the white supremacists and the people who hate black people vehemently are happy when we are killed. They are happy when somebody is able to murder us and possibly get away with it. And so they are disheartened, and they resort to violence because they have no other means. They cannot use words. They cannot use their intellect to actually combat the forces that they disagree with. I'm talking about the white supremacists. What they have to do is resort to violence, the lowest possible means of trying to convince people. And that's a shame. Shame on the people who are sending death threats to the Herring family. And while I do not disagree with death threats to the Hannah Payne family at all, I can understand why people might be impassioned about it. Because so many times in America, we see white people get away with doing heinous things to black people, and the levers of justice don't work. It is not right for anybody to attack the Hannah Payne family, but I can understand why it happens. And I don't encourage anybody to do that. Don't send death threats to me. Don't send death threats to anybody you disagree with. Just ignore them and let time work its thing. So Mosley said the intensity of the threats led her office to open an investigation into who sent the messages. If they get them, we will prosecute them. This is enough. These families have been through enough, Mosley said. The siblings of Mr. Herring did absolutely nothing wrong. The family of Hannah Payne did absolutely nothing wrong. She did not share details about the content of the messages or who received the death threats. Hannah Payne murder trial testimony. Prosecutors accused Payne of playing cop in 2019 when she followed Herring after she left the scene of a crash she was not directly involved in. Payne cut him off and eventually shot him. The defense claimed Payne acted in self-defense because after confronting Herring, she claimed he started attacking her. Now, listen, if you cut somebody off in traffic, put your car in front of them as if like you're in rush hour or something like that, of course, anybody will be upset. So I imagine Kenneth Herring probably started cursing her out, calling all sorts of B's and H's and that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, this Karen gets out of the car and starts wagging her finger at him, then eventually pulls out the tool and lays into him. Listen, that is unprovoked. That is murder. That is wrong. Please stop harassing people. To all the white people out there who like to play God or Big Daddy or Big Mama to black people, please stop that, because you're eventually going to get hurt. Somebody might hurt you physically, or you might do 43 years in a Georgia prison. Please, y'all relax. As Americans, we should be able to talk about our differences. We should be able to resolve them with words, not with guns and not with fists. Let's talk about our issues. Road rage is real, but America makes this worse by allowing guns to permeate in our society. But y'all ain't ready for that, though. Y'all don't want to hear that. Anyway, Payne took the stand in her own defense during the murder trial. She said there was a state officer present at the initial crash, of which she was a witness. She claimed that the officer told her and another witness at the scene outright that Herring was inebriated. At some point, Payne said Herring started revving his engine and pulled away from the scene of the initial crash. She testified at the time she was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher who asked if she had been able to grab his tag number. She said when she realized she hadn't and thought no one else did either, she got in her car. All right, this is going above and beyond. So this drunk guy crashes into a car and starts driving away. The 911 guy or girl says, hey, get the tag number. She didn't get it. So then she goes above and beyond. See, this is when people have to start minding their own business. Mind your own business and life will be a lot better for you and your family and everybody. If Hannah Payne decided, you know what, I tried my best, time to go home and watch Friends, her whole life will be different and I wouldn't be on this YouTube right now. But we're going to talk about this. So let's continue. She told the court that Terry Robinson, the man she believed to be the state officer, told her to go, insinuating he wanted her to follow Herring. No, 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 no. He told you to go, as in go home, go on, get out of here. No officer is going to tell a citizen to get involved in pursuing a suspected criminal. That doesn't make any sense at all. At one point, Payne testified that Herring's car stopped in a turning lane. She said she exited her vehicle and approached Herring with her phone on speaker to show that she was in contact with 911. She said she told him the dispatcher asked both of them to return to the original accident site. She then told the court that Herring grabbed her shirt and her wrist and pulled her into the vehicle, and she saw her light flash before her eyes. Oh, this big black man grabbed me after I was harassing and chasing him. I doubt that he grabbed her, by the way. Anyway, additionally, she claimed Herring appeared to be reaching behind his front seats before mashing the gas and crashing into her car. It was at that time that she drew out her gun. Payne claimed Herring tried to take the gun from her and it went off. She also claimed that her finger was never on the trigger. Despite her testimony, it only took the jury 2 hours to reach a verdict, finding her guilty of all counts, as they should. And those white woman tears cannot save you. So, I think parole is actually a good thing. It's hard for me to say because, once again, I believe America, we are too punitive. We lock up more people than most other nations in the world. We have people serving longer sentences for nonviolent crimes and even for some violent crimes that I believe are too long in America. And I really wish that more people were able to get out and re-enter society after serving their time, and we're not stigmatized for serving in society. And this applies to all people, all people, all people, all Americans who are serving time for nonviolent crimes or drug-related crimes and that sort of stuff. I wish that we were able to rehabilitate these people and reintroduce them into society, not burying them under the jail and giving them 40, 50, 100 years or double lifetime sentences and that sort of stuff. Hannah Payne is different. Hannah Payne deserves to actually be under the jail. But I'll say this. We know that this is blatant white supremacy because if this was the other way around, if Kenneth Herring had chased down this white woman and shot her and that sort of stuff, Kenneth Herring would have gotten double lifetime sentences, convicted less than 2 hours, and also got, no parole. And that's not cool. That's not cool. We know the double standards that exist in America. And I'm bringing that up to talk about this. When you Google how many black men are in the Georgia prison system, you get this information. In Georgia, black people constituted 32% of state residents, but 51% of people in jail and 60% of people in prison. This article was written on October 12th, 2023 for WAB.com. All the links will be in the description. New study reveals high percentage of black Georgia inmates despite national decrease in black incarceration. So African Americans make up 61% of Georgia's incarcerated population, in contrast to the only 31% of black residents who make up the state's overall adult population. Reforms to law enforcement and sentencing of drug and property crimes have transformed criminal justice policies around the country, researchers note. However, that this still has not changed Georgia's incarceration demographic. Over the past 4 decades, mass incarceration has disproportionately affected people of color. Since 2009, there has been a 25% decline in the total prison population, according to a new study by the Sentencing Project titled 1 in 5, Ending Racial Equality in Incarceration. And while the study shows lower rates of African Americans incarcerated nationwide, Georgia itself lags behind in progression. Georgia only made a 17% reduction in its prison population since 2009, said Nazgul Gandanush, co-director of research at the Sentencing Project. Georgia is one of only 12 states in the country where over half of the prison population is African American. I'm from Louisiana, so I'm pretty sure, I am probably more than certain, I'd bet every dollar or penny in my bank account that Louisiana is top on that list, or Mississippi. African Americans make up 61% of Georgia's incarcerated population, in contrast to the only 31% of black residents who make up the state's overall adult population. According to the study in 2021, black Americans were in prison at 5.0 or 5 times the rate of their white counterparts, showing systemic white supremacy in the Georgia prison system and in the law enforcement system. You know, last night I watched a documentary titled The Devil You Know, or something like that. It's by this writer from the New York Times called Charles Blow, and he's making the argument that black people need to move down south to reclaim power, and we need to be in the homelands of our people in America. And be in places where we can have political control. But listen, the white supremacists are evil. If we all move down to Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and that sort of thing, the white supremacists will be in full force like they have been against the black people who have stayed there. And trust me, I know. I was born in Alabama, grew up in Louisiana, and both of those states have their black population poor, dispossessed, and in prison. We don't need to be moving down south to reclaim power. We need to seek the best opportunities for ourselves and our families throughout America and throughout the world. I'm making that absolutely clear. Absolutely clear. Georgia's prison system is wrong. It's good to see that Hannah Payne is going to be convicted for her crimes, but there needs to be reform in the Georgia prison system, because if Kenneth Herring was the one who killed Hannah Payne, this would be a totally different story. And Georgia has a history of this. This will be the last article we will read today. Georgia prisoners in black and white. Barry Godfrey, professor of social justice, Liverpool University. Recent analysis of Georgia penitentiary records by Stephen Soper and Barry Godfrey show that there was a significant rise in the number of formerly enslaved people who were imprisoned following the end of the Civil War. In Georgia, before the war, there was an average of 40 people a year being sent to prison. One such person was a prisoner, Samuel W. Whitworth, described as fair of complexion, blonde, blue-eyed, 5 feet 9 inches tall, from Jones County. The cotton farmer, originally from North Carolina, was gaoled for causing mayhem, probably some drunken violence, on March 10th, 1817, and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. He managed to escape on Christmas Eve 1820 and had 3 years on the run before being recaptured and hanged in South Carolina in December 1823. As a white man, he was in the majority whilst he served his time in a Georgia prison. Between 1817 and 1865, the records of complexion reveal that 4/5 of inmates were described as white, fair, or light, and 1/5 were described as black, dark, and copper colored. From 1868, the category of race replaced complexion in the records, giving the records a spurious pseudo-scientific gloss, though terms such as ginger cake, used for 900 people, reveal the impressionistic and casually derogatory basis of the descriptors. See, I love when, we go back in history and see how they classify people, because it goes to show, once again, race is a social construct that is just created. And blackness and whiteness are just the modern ways that we now describe people's phenotypical skin differences and that sort of stuff. And so going back and describing people as ginger cake, definitely not a name you want to have in prison. This goes to show that all of this is all made up. We are all human. We are all one race, but we need to fight anti-blackness and white supremacy. Race is a social construct, but it's a real social construct that we have to live with and deal with. It's the same way gender is a social construct, but it's real and how we interact with people and deal with people. So these are the prison statistics. Georgia prison system reception by race, 1817 to 1923. So if we look here, the blue is black and the yellow is white. 1817, mostly white. All leading up to that, still mostly white. 1838, all black. I guess that was around the time of the Civil War and that sort of stuff. Yep. And it continues to become more and more black as it continues. Now, for the white supremacists or the racists who are going to watch my channel and say, oh, well, see, that proves black people are more violent. How come black people weren't in prison then? If we were inherently violent, if we were inherently criminals, how come we didn't make the majority of the prison population then? How come only after we get freedom? How come only after we are away from the violence inflicted upon us by the white supremacist society and their lackeys? How come then we get locked up in prison? Showing once again that the system of white supremacy is the problem, not black people. Statistics can only take us so far. The digital composite photographs constructed by Jessica Liu and shown in the exhibition more dramatically capture the shift in prison demography. Pre and post average faces of Georgia conflicts. So this is before the Civil War. This is after the Civil War. So, in Georgia, the prison population reflected racist policies operated through the criminal justice system, and the legacy of the overrepresentation of African Americans can still be seen in America's prisons today. It seems we now have access to evidence which shows the long-standing use of prison as a tool of oppression against the poor, and particularly the African American poor. Caroline Wilkinson, in her lecture, which accompanies this exhibition, further explores cognitive and other biases which continue to play out in the criminal justice system and in society, using methods developed in the digital panopticon, which provides huge amounts of data on British convicts. Steve Soper and Barry Godfrey have used digitized trial reports, census records, prison documents, and family histories in order to reconstruct prisoners' lives before and after they were imprisoned in the system. Some of these stories of people convicted of theft, murder, drug, and alcohol running are revealed in the exhibition. However, whenever possible, our research tells the story of people after they were released. We believe that people should not be defined either by their status as formerly enslaved people or as prisoners of the new Georgian penal estate. I agree with that. They spent their time in prison, but when released, they rebuilt their lives. For example, Claude Leavell, who was born the son of a farm laborer in Carrollton, Georgia, 1903. During the First World War, he presented himself at Fort McPherson in Atlanta to enlist. Although he was only 15 years old, he was allowed to join up as he had given his age as 19. It's so crazy that in American history, we had so many child soldiers, like literal children that would join the army. And I still think children join the army now. If you join the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, the regular army, at 18 years old, you're a child, man. And one of the things that broke my heart when we left Afghanistan, there were a few Marines defending the U.S. Embassy there, and they got killed. And their ages, when they reported them on the news, were like 18, 19, and 20. It's a shame. That's a shame. When I was 18 years old, I was not ready to be flown halfway across the world, given an M16, and told to die for your country. I honestly think the enlistment age should be raised to like 25 or something. Like, be a grown man. You get what I'm saying? Before you decide to put your life on a line for a country that goes and oppresses people across the world. I'm going to continue. So he served his country until 1919 when he was given an honorable discharge. 3 years later, struggling to find work after being discharged, he was convicted of transporting liquor contrary to prohibition legislation, his first and only conviction. By the time World War II started, Claude was employed and living in Detroit with his wife Maria. Like many people, he worked hard to overcome the stigma of being a former convict and battled other forms of discrimination to make a new life. The stories in this exhibition do as much to honor their struggle as much as condemn the system that made struggle necessary. So this man that they're talking about possibly is a black man, because as we know, Georgia around 1903 started locking up more and more black people. In fact, the vast majority of their prison population in 1903 was black, so it's very likely he was. And I'm just going to say this. The reason I was reading this article about the prison population in Georgia is that we can't get too happy about symbolic victories. Yes, it is a good thing that Hannah Payne will probably spend a good portion of her life in jail. Hopefully she does not get parole. Hopefully white supremacy doesn't move its invisible hand to make it easier for her to get out of the problem she created for herself. But we need to remember things like this, that Georgia, the United States in general, continues to oppress us, and we need to continually fight to change the country systemically. We need to be aware. We need to be woke. We need to be always vigilant about trying to make a better society, being aware of these problems, and fighting against anti-blackness and white supremacy. Hannah Payne, I hope you rest in peace. No death threats to her or her family at all. We do not condone death threats. It is not cool. Don't harass her or the Herring family or anything like that. But we are happy to see that justice actually worked, though parole should have been taken off the table. Make her serve her full life sentence. My name is Simon Hill.